According to John Lennon, the Beatles album doesn't go anywhere. When you thoroughly examine the Beatles' history, it becomes evident that John Lennon played an unusual position in the group aside from his musical contributions. The star was a psychologist's fantasy, and admiration was one thing that he obviously had trouble handling. In some respects, it seems like he was always attempting to avoid popular praise in favor of a more controversial indie reception from the general public. The obvious response was to occasionally mock the efforts of his fellow band members to generate an air of cool indifference, but this also ran up against a large ego. It's also important to remember that attempting to put some distance between yourself and the panic around you was a very natural response. Paul McCartney even attempted to achieve the same in terms of creativity. As John Lennon put it, as I read the other day, McCartney said in one of his fanzine interviews that he was trying to put some distance between the Beatles and the public, and so there was this identity of Sgt. Pepper. The Beatles' own yearning to find solace in a created fantasy is how the concept album came to be. However, the finished product had significant storyline flaws, like many fantasies. Lennon stated in the book All We Are Saying, the last major interview with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, that intellectually, that's the same thing he did by saying he loves you instead of I love you. He simply operates in that manner. Despite being billed as the first concept album, Sgt. Pepper falls flat. While the album may have been hailed as a masterpiece by, well, pretty much everyone, even the artist himself was honest about his opinions on it more than a decade later. He also made a harsh suggestion that they got away with it as a result of the pedestal they had been put on. All of my contributions to the album had nothing to do with the concept of Sgt. Pepper and his band, but it works because we said it would work, and that's how the album came to be, the musician added. Determining that, except from the album's cover and a few minor narrative touches, it hardly qualified as a concept record at all. Except for Sgt. Pepper introducing Billy Shears and the so-called reprise, he continued, it was not as well put together as it seems. Every other song was interchangeable with any other album. That is somewhat true, with the exception of the hazy connection that the record examined culture in general. However, there were other factors contributing to the concept's success as well, and Lennon found it convenient to overlook those in his retrospective analysis. He astutely manipulated how he came to represent a reinterpretation of his own artistic legacy. That was always intriguing, even though it wasn't always believable.